Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Welcome to the council meeting of November 12th, 2019, and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will start with announcements. And Ms. Niedergang, if you're ready, we'll start on my right.
I have no announcements.
Also, no announcements.
No announcements tonight, Mayor.
I will make mine quick. And it's a combination of announcement and report. Last Friday, the Civil Rights Commission hosted a civil rights primer that was well attended. We were very pleased to see a mix of municipal employees and community partners attend. And we, based on the trainer and the interest, it indicated that there was a desire to have more and perhaps more focus, have separate ones. One that would be focused on fair housing, one focused on employment, and another one for public accommodations, but just more than once throughout the year.
Just one quick reminder that on Monday, November 25th, Corner House, along with Princeton Alcohol and Drug Alliance, Princeton Health, and the Princeton Police, and with some of our other community partners, are going to be hosting the presentation on teen vaping called "What You Need to Know." So we're encouraging all families to come out, our parents who have children to come out, and it will be held from 7 to 9 p.m. at Princeton High School's Performing Arts Center. The presenters are going to be Dr. Michael Steinberg, who's the director of Rutgers University's Tobacco Dependence Program, and also we have a tobacco policy lawyer, Kevin Schroth. So we're just encouraging all families to come out and attend.
Great, thank you. I have a few announcements. The first is that we'll be meeting on Monday night. Council will be meeting Monday night to discuss the fueling station. So people are welcome back for that. That meeting will be at 7 p.m. here in this room. On Thanksgiving Day, there's a community service interdenominational at the Princeton University Chapel. Thanksgiving morning, I encourage everybody to come. It's a really nice community event. And we've been working with the merchant community on a lot of really great holiday promotions this season. So one big new thing this year is there's going to be outdoor ice skating in Palmer Square starting on Saturday, November 30th, I believe that's the Saturday. And the town is offering free parking after 6 p.m. Monday through Fridays, now through the end of December. And also, as we traditionally do, there will be free parking all day on Sundays. And I'm just checking with Mr. DeShield if that could be done through your office or police, or whether council needs to approve anything on that.
I need to check because we just recently passed a ordinance, I think, that authorized. I just need to check the details to see whether council needs to do a resolution or not.
Okay.
To make
Would it
that
help
effective.
to just have like an affirmative vote on that tonight, since we...
That would actually be helpful.
Okay, all right. So is there a consensus that we offer free parking on Sundays during December? This is something we've done over the past several years. Yes. Okay. Do you want us to actually vote on it or not? Is it a vote helpful? A consensus is fine. Okay, great. And are there any staff announcements? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to proclamations. The first proclamation is in support of Small Business Saturday, and just following along the lines of my prior comments, we hope everybody will get out and support our local businesses during the holiday season. It's the best of all of the shopping days because you can feel good about doing it, and it's super pleasurable, unlike some of the other crazy shopping days, holidays. And we also have a proclamation tonight for Epilepsy Awareness Month, and Sue Livingston is here from the Epilepsy Foundation.
Thank you, first of all, for taking the time and for offering, I can scream, I'm good. Okay. For offering the proclamation. I'm with the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania, and as you can tell, we're branching out into New Jersey. 1 in 26 people will have epilepsy sometime in their lifetime. And that's more than multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, and Parkinson's combined. So the numbers are very high, much higher than most people realize. And there are many different kinds of seizures. So the convulsive seizure that most people think of used to be called grand mal, now generalized. But that is one kind of seizure. A seizure can be staring, it can be wandering around aimlessly. It's anything the brain can do, it can do in the form of a seizure. So it's very misunderstood. There are a lot of misconceptions that are associated with epilepsy, but the foundation works to get rid of some of those misconceptions by bringing awareness, like you're doing for us today, and for education. And we do it through a variety of programs. We offer support groups. We go into the schools and do programs, and hopefully we are working with the state of Pennsylvania to have seizure-safe schools where there will be seizure training in all the schools. And we also have a camp for kids, a week-long sleepover camp for kids with epilepsy, which I won't even start because I think it's one of the best things we do, and I could talk about it for a long time. But we really appreciate you offering us the proclamation. That means a lot to us. And thank you for your ribbons and for all your purple. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I have this for you too, which declares Epilepsy Month here in Princeton and encourages people to become educated and support the research. It's been sent to you.
Can we do a photo op?
Of course, yeah, sure. People want to come down? Someone's mic is.
Mayor, if I could just, not to belabor the point, but as someone who's been living with epilepsy for half of his life and all of his adult life, I know that there are things that we can do right now. There's a bill in the New Jersey Senate, S4141, or Paul's Law, which will improve the care of students with epilepsy and other seizure disorders in schools. The two main groups that are seeing an increase in the development of epilepsy are young people, our children, and also yesterday was Veterans Day, and we're remembering that the highest percentage population in the growth of epilepsy have been our veterans who have served abroad and suffered traumatic head injuries. So I'm very grateful to you, Mayor, and to my colleagues on council for giving us this forum to increase awareness. And if you would write to Senator Bateman, your support for S4141 would be taking action. Paul's Law. Paul is a 8th grader in Maple Shade, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tim.
you, Tim. And I just wanted to ask if anybody had any questions, anything that we can answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment, Councilman Quinn, if you could send the information on to us by email so we can follow up on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up the floor now for public comment. If there's anybody who'd like to speak to an item that's not already on the agenda. And seeing no one, I'll close public comment and we'll move on to reports. So the first report was in our packets. Just so we have the information on the record, we heard from Sandy Webb at the last meeting, but this has more full information about the best practices inventory and our answers to that. And then we have a report on the senior nutrition program and where we are with that. And I want to turn it over to Mr. Grosser.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm excited to report out on the status of the senior nutrition site this evening. A little background on the program. Princeton sponsors a senior nutrition site that is funded through the Mercer County Office on Aging and through the federal Older Americans Act. The program provides free lunches and social programs for seniors on site. The site is currently housed at the Princeton Senior Resource Center and has been there since the program restarted in May of 2018. Since the start of the program, it has consistently seen between 15 to 20 people, and unfortunately and fortunately, the program has reached maximum capacity for the room at PSRC. At about the midpoint of this year, Princeton began searching other potential suitable locations for a new site. Princeton determined that the Chestnut Street Firehouse would be a suitable relocation for the program, allowing for the expansion of enrollment as well as a kitchen that could eventually provide hot meals for participants. Over the course of the summer, the firehouse received a brand new roof, which was leaking, and a brand new drop ceiling, which was in need of replacement due to the leak. The facility is now ready for the program, and Princeton is awaiting Mercer County Buildings and Grounds to have an electrician ensure the kitchen is able to handle the program's oven. We are hearing that Mercer County Trade Bus will account for the new location to assist with transportation, and we're seeking other options as well. I'm optimistic that we'll have an official kickoff launch date for the program that we'll announce within the next few weeks. At that point, I will make sure word is distributed so eligible Princeton participants can participate. I want to thank Princeton resident Ms. Lisa Wu, who's been consistently advocating for the expansion of the program, Mayor and Council for being open to the relocation of the site and repairs to the firehouse, Dan Van Matter in Public Works for the repair work, and Bob Gregory in Emergency Services for his logistics support. I want to echo the fact that this program provides a lot of social interaction for seniors in town. This is typically one of the only interactions that they can have with some fellow seniors, and provides an opportunity for that social interaction that's very important. This is the step that a lot of seniors wish they could have, and a service that is we like to have in Princeton. And when we didn't have it, a lot of people wanted it. Now that we have it, we want to make sure that's the best it can be. So I appreciate everybody's support with this. If there's any questions about it, I'm happy to answer those. And I'm optimistic that we'll have a date for the official kickoff in the next couple weeks.
Do you have a question?
I'm just curious, what do we perceive as the possible upper limit to
To the new room?
to the new room, and is there, why is the enrollment set, you said between 15 and 20? I'm curious, like, why isn't it 40 or 50 or?
It's based on the room's capacity for fire safety.
Okay.
And the fact that people like to eat lunch between 12 and 1, 12 and 2. So if you have people coming in, they're sitting in that smaller room, you can only cycle through so many in that given period. The new firehouse, the capacity of that room, I want to say is upwards of 75 to 100. So, and the county can handle that from a resource standpoint. We just have to get the people there.
That'd be fabulous.
So that's going to be the next hurdle that we'll cross that I want to get to. But for now, we're happy for the room that was available for us, the PSRC. If you recall, a couple years ago, we were kind of going through back and forth which location to pick. That was the quickest, and we knew that we were going to reach a point where we're going to hit maximum capacity and when seniors were going to want warm lunches, because if you recall when we started, it was all cold box lunches. So we're trying to bring it up to speed where it should be, and we're getting close.
That's great, because as we've spoken, there's, a big loneliness epidemic, and this is one of the tools we can use to work on that.
Yeah,
issue. So,
this is a
thank
fantastic
you.
service provided through the county's Office on Aging and through the Older Americans Act. The next step of this is obviously Meals on Wheels, where people are not able to make it out to a site like this, and that's also a very important service. But this is great because they get interactions with the health department, human services, fire safety, and they get to interact with other municipal officials that can actually educate them as well when they're on site.
Great. Thank you. Oh, Ms. Fraga?
Yes. So I had a follow-up question. Would there be an opportunity to use this facility for other purposes? I'm thinking about, one thing that comes to mind is the mobile pantry that I know sometimes has been here at the community center, other times at the Pinnell Center, and it doesn't seem to have a permanent home. I was wondering if that could potentially be used for other purposes.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, a lot of the logistics have gone through Bob Gregory because of his interaction with the fire department and that site. So I think it's a great conversation and it's a great opportunity.
Even flu clinic, I don't know if that's, or WIC.
Warwick, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Grosser? All right, and then we'll move to council reports. And I'll start again on my right.
So just a couple of things. The health department invited its strategic partners to an event in late October to solicit input on its new 5-year plan, and that event was well attended, and there were a lot of good conversations that were generated from that, and that will be folded into the next iteration of the plan, which is percolating along. So from the environmental committee will be voting tomorrow on a resolution expressing support for electric vehicles and electric vehicles charging stations in support of a bill that's going to be before, or is before, the state assembly. So I'm assuming there's support on PEC to pass that, and then that will be coming to council probably in December. And finally, from the Transit Communications Task Force, a new Transit Princeton brochure has been produced, which is going to be mailed to every resident. It's just in time for the Alexander Road closing, so the need is great to know about other alternatives, but it can obviously also be used going forward. And the Transit Communications Task Force is also working on improving signage at the Dinky station so that when people get off the Dinky, they have some clue as to where to go, where they can get transit, and other options for them. That's it.
Just quickly, wanted to let council know, I think at one of our most recent meetings, I happily announced that the mural was approved for the location in the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood. Today I received an email. Apparently there's been an appeal of the decision to allow the mural to go up. So, Ms. Davey, I don't know if you've received this. It's not entirely clear to me whether it's an appeal of the HPC's action or an actual court filing. But the story's not over yet, I guess.
Even though the mural is up already? Are we talking
Yes,
about the same mural?
We're talking about the same mural. I'll forward you the document if you're interested.
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Oh, I just one. Just pleased to announce that the Recreation Commission and Recreation staff listened to the public regarding Maggie's Playground. They went back, did some more studies, and came up with a second design plan, which has been pretty well received by the public, and therefore we actually have it. We have a resolution prepared tonight that, if passed, will allow them to go out and purchase the new equipment that would be available as soon as, I believe, in about a month or so. So that'll be good news that we can get Maggie's Playground back open.
That's terrific. Thank you. I have a few reports. The first is I want to thank Kim Dorman from the library and all the members of the BCCs who came out on Saturday for Engage Princeton. It was a really great event, and hopefully it'll be an annual event. And just a reminder that we do have some openings on our boards and commissions for January, so we want to start getting the word out about those and encouraging people who might be interested in participating to apply. Let's see. There's a grant opportunity from Bloomberg Philanthropies for street art that a group of us have been starting to brainstorm on, and David and I met with staff to
And
Leticia, sorry, to talk about where we might be able to craft a proposal, and we're looking at South Tulane Street. So if we'll try to keep everybody up to date on as those plans develop, and if we can get something together. And there was a meeting a couple weeks ago with the Edge Hill neighbors. They had reached out to the engineering department and police department to talk about traffic concerns. It was mostly a meeting to listen. And there was also a luncheon sponsored by the Greater Mercer TMA. Mr. Grosser was there, Ms. Stockton came too, and Princeton was, we received every award. It was really wonderful. So Sustainable Princeton was awarded with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission's Air Quality Partnership Award. Princeton received a Safe Routes to School gold recognition, and the municipality also received the New Jersey Smart Workplaces Platinum Award. And even better than the awards, the DOT commissioner was there and gave the talk and spoke repeatedly about the all-pedestrian crosswalk at Nassau and Washington, and how when they like to be responsive for when a community really pushes for something. So it was good to hear her say that she was getting positive feedback from us on that. And we've been pushing for them to continue down the street, so we'll see.
Mayor, there seemed to be some confusion in the community about whether this is a permanent arrangement now, and if so, can we have striping that reflects the diagonal crossing?
Right, so Ms. Stockton's not here tonight, but I don't think that we've gotten any formal piece of paper from DOT that has them acknowledging that it's permanent. And also there's been a lot of back and forth about what the MUTCD allows or doesn't allow in terms of creating diagonal cross marks. I mean, I feel like I found it in the MUTCD, but there's people who don't like it. So it's a constant struggle. But we should be happy we have the light, and we continue to push on the other.
And apparently, we can't do any striping unless it's permanent. There's no.
Well, I think in part, yes, that's true. And also, as the town, we're not authorized to put our own striping down on a state highway. It has to be the state that approves of it. And it was really, I think, the commissioner going out on a limb approving this. And it seems like that there's not maybe unanimity at the DOT about whether this is a good idea or not. So can sometimes take a while, but I think the longer it's out there and people are using it, people seem to be crossing diagonally and understanding that's how you use it. So that part is all good news. And I think this is new for them, and I think we have to realize when something is new, it can sometimes, it's helpful to keep it positive and let them know that this has been an improvement to pedestrian safety in our town. Yeah, you're welcome. And then just a couple more announcements. Obviously, Alexander Street has been closed for about a week. I think that all the preparation work has paid off, and we're still monitoring the situation. And if people have concerns, they should contact us. And there's also a number for the DOT, and we have a special page up on the website with more information. And then finally, the Economic Development Committee met today and was talking about goals for 2020. So some of the things they want to work on, one, create a business portal page for the website, that's especially helpful for new businesses coming into town. To continue to work on the sign ordinance, we're going to have the work session tonight for an ordinance that addresses part of the sign ordinance, but not the whole thing. Looking at our parking requirements, and there's been a subcommittee looking at a fee in lieu of the parking requirement, and we'll be giving a report, doing a work session on that at our next meeting and get some direction from council on that. They also want to do a review of the conditional and allowable uses in our business districts and service districts to make sure that those uses are up to date. And also look at a sustainability program for local businesses. Are there any staff reports? Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm not even sure if this is appropriate, but I'm going to give it a go. I took a class at Jam and Crepes yesterday, and they're going to be featured this Friday on diners, dives, and drive-through, whatever it is, Friday at 9:30. So I'm thrilled to know about that, and so I'm just passing that on to anyone else who might be interested as a wonderful example of a homegrown business getting some recognition. So.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Shield?
Just want to give a quick report, just updating everyone on the progress with the fire department and the hiring of the 6 firefighters. We've had a total of 9 applicants who were determined to be qualified for the positions. This Sunday, we had the first part of the testing for those applicants. All of the applicants passed the physical agility test this Sunday. They have all been scheduled for interviews, which will begin next Friday. Those interviews will go through the following Tuesday. At that point, any applicants who are then selected from the interview process will have to go through a physical examination and psychological testing. And then from that point, we'll make a recommendation to council for appointment in December.
Great, thank you. So if there's no more reports, we can move on to the work session for this evening. And I do want to thank Josh Sinder, who's here tonight, who was really instrumental in getting this proposal to this point, and also to Jeffrey Oakman at ZARC, to the HPC and the Economic Development Committee, and to Mr. LaPlace too. It was like a group effort, and this is a pretty big change for Princeton, and I think those of us who've been working on it are really excited for it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, what we're here tonight to discuss is a really exciting initiative, and as you said, it was a real team effort in the community. I'd like to also thank Mr. Zinder and his team, which they put in a lot of time, volunteered a lot of time into this. Also, the folks, representatives from the Historic Preservation Commission were also very determined to have a positive outcome, and I'll talk a little bit about how the process was. But stepping back a bit to give you some context, last year there was a request to the mayor's economic development committee from the Princeton Merchants Association requesting that the municipality take a look at the sign ordinance and see if it could be changed and reviewed and updated to be more responsive to the needs, particularly of the business community, and very much so for the central business district. So that request was forwarded by the Economic Development Committee to the Planning Department and to the Planning Board. And we had ZARC, the Zoning Amendment Review Committee, take on this task. And what the ZARC committee, the ZARC did was put together an ad hoc working group of representatives from the Merchants Association, ZARC itself, and the Historic Preservation Commission. And of course, the commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, had some legitimate concerns because, for instance, the area we were looking at, primarily the Central Business District, is a historic district. And it's got many of the, it contains many of the iconic buildings of Princeton and iconic streetscapes. And they're very concerned about how changes to the sign ordinance would affect the look, the character, the built legacy of Princeton. So we put this working group together under the direction of ZARC and our chairman, Jeffrey Oakman, who did a fantastic job moving the whole process forward. And one area that we decided to focus on was, because it was a request that was raised, and it's some other communities in New Jersey and elsewhere throughout the country are looking at it, is to allow projecting, or what are sometimes called blade signs, for businesses. And these are quite simply build signs that project out from the facade. As you know, right now under our ordinance, merchants, business and property owners are restricted to signs that are flat on the facade of a building, parallel to the street. And these are very much like traditional signs you may see in, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, you'd see hanging signs, projecting signs. We actually do have some very iconic, I'll use that word again, signs here in Princeton of older signs that have lasted, like the La Hare restaurant sign on Witherspoon Street, Chuck's, Chuck's Cafe on Spring Street. So those are familiar ones that have lasted the years. But anyways, so we started doing our research, started working on how projecting signs could be an asset to our businesses and to the streetscape here in Princeton and not compromise the character of our historic downtown, in particular where we were starting. And we've come up with a draft ordinance, which I think everyone feels really good about, that feels that it's practical. It'll give merchants a really valuable marketing tool so that the visibility of their businesses will be enhanced. It'll be particularly helpful not only on our major thoroughfare, Nassau Street, which has a rather large setback and wide sidewalk, but it'll also be particularly helpful to pedestrians looking down side streets like Tulane and Chambers and other streets where it's been very difficult for storefronts to be seen, or for visitors, particular people that aren't familiar with Princeton, to know to turn that corner and go down the street and discover some new businesses and opportunities. As you know, there's been some symptoms of this lack of visibility for businesses. We've had some problems with having freestanding sandwich board signs and sidewalks, and that's sort of a symptom of the problem, that some of these merchants can't be seen and don't attract that foot traffic. So we think projecting signs will really address that need. It's a cost-effective, permanent tool that merchants can use and business owners can use. So the ordinance pretty much gives design standards for what these signs will look like, where they would be installed, how they have to be installed so that they're safe, because they do project out into the public right-of-way, and lots of other design considerations. There's specifications in the draft ordinance that talks about spacing of these signs so that one sign doesn't block the visibility of a sign at a adjoining business, and we've given that a lot of thought, and how the signs would work in conjunction with other signage such as awnings and flat signs that are placed on the front of the building. So that's basically what's before you. The Planning Board at its meeting last Thursday, November 7th, unanimously endorsed the recommendation for this amendment to the sign ordinance to allow projecting signs, and sent it forth to the council for its consideration. And this would be for the central business. Basically, several zones would be affected by this proposal to allow projecting signs: the Central Business District and some of the adjoining neighborhood business districts. If you can picture the two major corridors, well, we'll picture the entire Central Business District along Nassau Street and the side streets within that district, and then some of the neighboring districts to the east of it going towards like Murray Street and going up Nassau Street, and then the Witherspoon Street corridor, because we wanted to include that so it'd be an economic development incentive as well to the businesses that go up and down Witherspoon Street from downtown up to the municipal complex here. So we've included those zones as well. And I want to note that our focus was on projecting signs as a new tool, sort of a new tool in the toolbox of what kind of signage you can have for your business. But we're going to look at the entire municipality in the new year. We want to continue this process because the request from the Princeton Merchants Association was to look at the entire sign ordinance and see how we could make it work better. This is a start, but we think this is an exciting start to it because it adds something new to what we have to offer businesses.
Thank you. I just had one question to start, then I'm going to open it up to everybody else. So in your memo, you talk about potentially providing illustrations. Are
Yes.
those going to be part of the ordinance that comes to council, or are those going to be folded in later?
We would like to include them in the final draft. We'll, again, another thing to thank Mr. Zinder for, he actually offered to, his shop is actually working on the graphics for us. So we're going to try to include those as soon as we have everything nailed down as far as the final ordinance.
Okay, yeah, that would be terrific. And I think I think we passed our first ordinance that had illustrations as part of them when we did the neighborhood character, and I think it makes our zoning laws and other laws just much friendlier and more, I think we're better able to convey with illustrations often more than we are with words. So it's a really great development. Thank you for working on that. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. There was a public comment at the planning board meeting where it was sort of indicating that there was still some interest in changing the maximum size
Yes.
of the sign, and I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about where that stands from the perspective of staff and the committees that have been working on this.
Thank you. Yes, I think that was really the one point that came up in terms of everyone else seemed pretty comfortable with other aspects of the ordinance. What we originally had in the draft ordinance, which came out of the working committee, was a maximum size area for a projecting sign of a maximum of 12 square feet. What happened was staff started thinking about that and looking at some other ordinances that exist, and we were a little concerned that they might be a little too big just in terms of scale of buildings in Princeton. I'll show you some size differences. Behind me, there's 3 different boards there, and the one on the left is 12 square feet, the one in the middle is 8 square feet, and the one to the right is 6 square feet. I'm aware of an ordinance that's recently being adopted in Westfield, which will allow a maximum square footage of 6 square feet. We felt that 8 square feet seemed reasonable. It seemed large enough to allow for some creativity and design and to be highly visible, particularly on a street like Nassau Street, where it really is a wide sidewalk and the buildings are set back from the curb. But we just, to be honest with you, it was a staff recommendation to come down from 12 square feet because we felt it just seemed large. I can't say it was terribly scientific. It was sort of just a feeling looking at what was out there. So that's how we went from 12 square feet as a recommendation to 8. And other than that, I think that was pretty much the open issue before the planning board when we discussed it.
So 8 is what's in the current language.
8 is what staff would recommend at this point for a maximum square footage.
And is that the only size restriction, or are there restrictions on the dimensions, like how far out it
No,
can
there's restrictions on, there has to be a minimum clearance from the sidewalk, and that's based on passage safety. I think it's 7 feet from the sidewalk. It can be no more than 4 feet projecting out from the building. There's restrictions on materials, which kind of give incentive to have the signs look more traditional and use more organic and natural materials. There's restrictions on the type of lighting to keep the lighting more elegant and restrained. So there's a lot of design restrictions. This is just the one about actual maximum size. And of course, the signs can be two-sided.
I mean,
So
do you-
what you'd have here is if you did the maximum 8 square feet that we're recommending, you really get 16 square feet of signage for both sides combined.
Do you have a sense of what will happen to the actual layer sign? Because my understanding was that that was kept there. I mean, I know it's a little nonsensical because it refers to a restaurant that's no longer there, but it is sort of this iconic.
Well, what's interesting
sign.
is the sign, yeah, I mean, it's probably, there's a lot of people in this room that know more about it than I do because I've been away from Princeton for several years. But what's interesting is we call it the Leher sign, but it's actually the major message on it is restaurant. So I'm guessing that it didn't seem inconsistent with the current tendency of the first and second floor. And it's just such an attractive sign that there must have been a lot of affection to keep it on the facade. It certainly doesn't cause confusion, I don't think, with what happens there. And I don't know about Chuck's. I guess Chuck's is just fastened to the building, and it tends to be the business has been there a long time. So it's kind of interesting how some of these signs have withstood the changes in ordinances. Because, of course, these kind of signs were permitted in most towns, I know in New Jersey, at least, by mid-20th century. And then it seemed, as you got into the 1960s and 70s, from our research, it seemed like that's when towns were changing their mind about having these signs project out from the buildings.
Well, you already touched on it a little bit. I haven't heard too much about the lighting, and I haven't noticed the existing signs, whether they light up at night. And so I was curious about what the restrictions would be on lighting, if there's, for example, whether it's neon or LED or
Yeah.
what type of lighting would be allowed.
Generally, the regulations say that the projecting signs are not internally illuminated. So you won't have a sign box. If you've seen some of these signs where it's pretty much just a box put on a facade and the whole thing lights up, that's not what these projecting signs will be. These will be much more elegant. The design criteria, the design guidelines really emphasize lighting directed onto the sign. So it's more of a historic nature. This was very important, as you can imagine, to the Historic Preservation Commission. And there was a lot of consideration given to lighting from the signs not causing glare on adjoining properties or, to vehicles. And there's language like that in the ordinance as well. So we did a lot of thinking on that and looking at other ordinances.
So we're not going to be looking at Vegas style signs.
Right, no
No.
Times Square.
No, I was thinking while we were doing this process, I was thinking of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, coming into the holiday season. And you know how there's Bedford Falls and there's
Yeah.
Pottersville? This is Bedford Falls. This is more Bedford Falls than Pottersville, I would
Got
say.
it.
Because if you remember that,
I remember
that's
that,
not.
yes. Thank you.
Just as a member of ZARC, for the benefit of my colleagues, I just want to point out that Mr. Laplace's leadership in this process was key to getting us over the goal line here. You had one group that was adamantly opposed to any additional blade signs, and you had another group who had legitimate business concerns for the viability of their stores, and he found a way to reach consensus and with Jeffrey Oakman and the other members of ZARC, and it helps to have Wanda Gunning at the table, the walking encyclopedia of Princeton history, and also Josh Cinder, who's with us, provided the graphics that the mayor referenced, which I think helped us to better visualize just what we were talking about. I appreciate you bringing the 12, 8, and 6 there. I was waiting for you to unveil something and then
No,
realize
it's a little,
that
yeah, it's a
we're
little,
just
that's
like-
it. Just whiteboard, sorry.
But anyway, thank you for your leadership, and it seems like it's a small thing when we mention it, but this is actually a big win for a win-win for everyone. So thank you.
Did you want to say anything, Josh? No? Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, sorry. Ms. Niedergang?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your leadership on this. And Mr. Quinn, thank you for acknowledging that. I'm wondering about possibly supplementing this. I'm thinking particularly of Tulane Street. If you're standing at Nassau Street and looking down the street, I know some towns have kind of almost directional signposts at a corner with just a simple, kind of black and white or black and gold with identifying these are the 4 stores that you get to when you go down this street. Particularly for Tulane, for Bank, for some of the streets off Witherspoon. I have no idea how that falls under this provision, but I'm wondering what you think of an idea like that, or is it unnecessary? Would it be helpful? And would it be difficult to do if you thought it was helpful?
No, I think it would be very helpful. I think that actually did come up in our discussions while we were discussing projecting signs. The zoning ordinance, of course, pertains to private property, so these are signs that are affixed to private buildings. If we were to do some kind of signage like that, directional informational signage within the public right-of-way on the sidewalks, we could certainly pursue that as part of a expanded concept for wayfinding, which we've talked about. So I think it's a great idea. Luckily, Princeton also has very good maps that are provided by the university and updated regularly of the downtown, which we put in our kiosks and are in the parking garage. So I think all of this working together, you want to have as many tools as possible. So that did come up in our discussions, and I think we will consider it as it would be within the public right-of-way, so it'd be up to the council as far as design and how to actually set up that kind of system.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know that this has been discussed at the Historic Preservation Commission before, and that there was some significant resistance to the wayfinding signage but I don't know what your latest conversations were.
I think they shared those concerns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't go beyond a sort of informal discussion, but we'll follow up on it, because it certainly is worthy of consideration.
Right, and there's other examples too of those wayfinding signs, instead of being on a freestanding pole, like on the side of the building. Yeah, I think it might be that way on Tulane.
There
right,
is
where
one on
there's the
Tulane. I believe
directory.
it got a variance.
Right. And so
directory
maybe
sign.
that's something when we do the sign ordinance part 2, we can look at what the restrictions are. I think like right now you can only have a sign that has to do with your own building. But if you're on like those corner ones, maybe we want to allow for you to also have the signs for the people down the street too. Mr. Zenner?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say that the blade signs were one of 7 different areas of signage that the PMA was looking at. One of them was that directional signs, but the critical need it was seen was really the blade signs. There were a number of businesses, specifically on Spring Street, that really felt they suffered without the blade signs. Some of them even left town, and that's why the merchants, are excited that this ordinance is going to be moving through. So, and the wayfinding was one of the 7 different areas we were looking at. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, we're looking forward. So the intention is to bring the ordinance to council on December 2nd? Excellent. All right. Well, for everybody who's interested in this, hopefully we'll see you again on the 2nd. And then that gives us just enough time to have the public hearing 2 weeks later. So this will be a December ordinance, and if it passes, a early holiday present for the merchants. Okay. So we do have 2 public. The first one, ordinance 2019-28, is familiar because it's come to council several times, and we've carried it each time that it's come to us. It's an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton accepting the donation of 40 plus or minus acres of passive open space located between Ridgeview Road and Cherry Valley Road and designated as Block 501, Lots 3 and 10 on the Princeton tax maps. In the reason why it kept being delayed is because there was still work that needed to be done on it, and in the latest discussions, it looks like we're going to be taking a change in approach. The challenge with accepting this property is that there's a detention basin, and so there was a lot of discussion about how to handle that detention basin. So we're going to be recrafting the ordinance. So I'm going to ask if there's a motion to introduce, and the recommendation is nobody says anything. And then it will, we can let it die, and then at a later date, we'll be reintroducing an ordinance. So everybody ready?
The Lazarus effect.
This is quite challenging.
Oh, but first I need to have the public hearing, right? All right, well, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
No,
That we introduce, I thought.
You want to be quiet, so there's
Oh.
no motion.
No motion.
Okay. Seeing that there's no motion, the ordinance, what do we say, like, the ordinance it dies, expires.
Like a
Okay.
Phoenix motion, you know.
Okay. All right, next we come to ordinance 2019-38, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton authorizing the acquisition of a stormwater easement on property designated as block 9301, lot 26 on the Princeton tax map pursuant to NJSA 40A 12-3 on Wynette Road. I'd like to, this is an ordinance because there's a existing stormwater easement that's on a part of a piece of private property that's probably should be out in the different spot, so it's not causing a nuisance. So I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and see if there's a motion to approve.
I'll approve. I'll move to
Moved
approve.
by Mr. Cohen
Second.
and seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Is there any further discussion from council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next, we come to our resolutions for this evening. The first one is Resolution 19-346, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to MRC Game Time using Middlesex County Educational Services, Commission of New Jersey contract number ESCNJ 1718-20 for the purchase and installation of playground equipment at Maggie's Playground in Quarry Park in the amount of $75,568.01. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Quinn
Second.
and seconded by Ms. Fraga. Any questions or discussions on this? I just want to thank Mr. Williamson and the Recreation Department for being flexible on this. One of the great things about this playground are the trees, and this is a compromise that saves the trees, which is one of the key ingredients of making that playground a really wonderful place. So it took a while, but thank you. And my understanding is that this will probably get installed in the spring. Is that?
Actually, even earlier, they say, depending on how hard the ground is for the winter. And so if we don't have any snow, we can possibly get it done within the next month or so. I know that it seems
that's
pretty
great.
aggressive,
Yeah.
but it's actually a possibility.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay.
Right.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 19-347, resolution authorizing an amendment to the memorandum of agreement with the Princeton Community Housing Development Corporation and the Princeton Housing Authority for the development of the Franklin Avenue parking lot for affordable housing. And
I actually want to make a motion to just temporarily pull the resolution and ask, and I guess I also need a motion for an amendment to the resolution.
Okay.
Unless- How's that done? Do I?
I think you're going to make a motion. Well, I think first we have to have it, we have to have it introduced. So we need a motion to approve it and a second, and then you can make a motion to amend it.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Williamson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Cohen.
I'd like to make a motion to modify it,
Okay.
or to amend it.
Okay.
And the amendment I'd like to make is just looking at the four whereas, Princeton Housing Authority is an independent authority, and the way it reads now, it says, PHA wishes to continue to serve Princeton preference residents by constructing 10
Can
to
you
20...
speak in your mic, please?
Oh, I apologize. I'm not. Oh, I apologize. Let me turn this way. It says, whereas PHA wishes to continue to serve Princeton preference residents by constructing 10 to 20 new residential units on Lot 2, it gives the impression that we are limiting what PHA may construct there. So how I would like to see it amended is that we strike just that line, because then we'll still meet the goals or the goal of the resolution without seeming as if we're telling PHA exactly how many units they can put there. So I make the motion to strike the fourth whereas, and to have the rest of the resolution read as it reads now without the fourth whereas.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. And I just have a question here. I'm sorry. So there's lot 2 has 20 existing housing units or 10 existing housing units? Okay, because the third whereas says, whereas PHA currently has 20 existing housing units on lot 2.
So we'd also need to modify that. That'd be a correction.
It actually should be lots 1, lots 2, and 26 are occupied by affordable housing users. 20 units in lot 2 and in lot 26.
Third whereas, you want to add lots 2 and 26? Is that?
Correct. And that would make that accurate.
All right, so I move to make 2 amendments to the resolution as stated, and amendments are that for the third whereas, we insert the term, or I should say the words, and 26 after where it says lot 2, so it reads lot 2 and 26, correct? Oh. So I'm making a motion to make 2 amendments to the resolution as stated. For the third whereas, it should read that whereas PHA currently has 20 existing housing units on lot 2 and 26.
But
Okay,
I don't know. I think
Okay.
actually, yeah, go ahead.
that is the fourth whereas.
No, the fourth whereas is
Yeah,
different.
no, you're right. It's the fourth
It's the fourth
whereas.
whereas.
It's the fourth whereas,
Oh,
but
you're right,
if
you're
you
right,
read
you're
the,
right, the fourth whereas, right.
I'm sorry to be wordsmithing this here, but if you read the resolution, what it's trying to indicate, I think instead of saying that there's 20 existing housing units on lot 2 and 26, I think we should change it to say there are 10 existing housing units on lot 2, because this is really, what's most important here is talking about lot 2, not about lot 2 and lot 26, which I think confuses the meaning of the resolution. So, and it's an easier change too, so.
Can I make what maybe is affordable households, is that the appropriate term? It didn't strike me the first time, but reading it now, technically I don't know what that.
You mean as opposed to affordable housing units?
I think you just take out affordable. Okay, can I try this and then
Perfect.
see if it
Thank you.
works? Okay, so in the 1, 2, 3, in the fourth whereas, it would say, whereas PHA currently has 10 existing housing units on lot 2 occupied by households that have received a Princeton preference for said occupancy.
Yes.
And then in the fifth whereas, it would say, it would not, that we would eliminate the fifth whereas
strike the
completely.
fifth
And then
whereas
then it would pick up, whereas by allowing PHA to proceed with their own development on lot 2, feasibility plans indicate that by continuing to include that include the PHA Lot 26 only in the development preliminary project plan. The envisioned 80 new units of affordable housing can still be constructed. There's a typo there, too. So if we can change affordability to affordable. Okay, so there's 4 changes. Should I
That
say them one
sounds
more
correct,
time?
Mayor. Right.
So the first 2 changes are in that fourth whereas. You change the 20 to 10, and you take out affordable. We eliminate the 5th whereas, and in the 6th whereas, we change affordability to affordable. All right? And Mr. Williamson's made that motion. Is there a second to the
Second.
amendment?
Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I seconded the amendment.
Okay.
I should redo it, though, since the amendment has evolved. So I second the evolved amendment.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'm sorry, Joe, do you want to say anything? Or are you just here to witness? Okay.
I do have, I know at one point there was consideration of the possibility of integrating the Princeton preference units into the other 80 units. Is that an idea that has been completely abandoned?
Run into legal issues with that.
This-
It's a financing issue.
Right.
Or legal/finance.
This does not eliminate those, the 10 properties on the one lot will continue to be integrated into the 80 units. And then, so that will still occur. It will be 10 instead of the 20.
And the Princeton preference will go away after the current occupants
That is correct.
leave the units.
Okay. Great. So that resolution passed unanimously. Next, we come to 19348, resolution authorizing a supplemental professional services agreement with Dewberry Engineers Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $11,500 for Witherspoon Street sanitary sewer video inspection, resulting in a revised total contract amount not to exceed $93,140. And this is something that engineering department is using for this initial round of study for the Witherspoon Street study. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify, this is the same company that's performing the survey work for the Witherspoon study.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Niedergen.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Quinn. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 19349, resolution authorizing use agreement with New Singular Wireless, PCS LLC. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Fraga.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Quinn. Are there any questions or comments on this?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember from a previous agreement that was introduced like this that we either public or private entities that host these earn very little from that. Is that accurate? And that's because of state requirements? Federal? Okay. So this is not a big money earner for anybody. Okay, thank you.
Has it been moved and seconded? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. The next resolution is, we're going to hold that till the next meeting. The next is 19351, resolution authorizing the purchase of 31 Billy Ellis Lane in the amount of $98,303.99. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Williamson. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 19352, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Hoffman Service Incorporated via the Sourcewell contract for portable truck lifts in the amount of $60,829.32. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohen,
Second.
Seconded, wow, that was stereo. Seconded by Ms. Fraga. Any questions on this one?
I have no idea what a truck lift is. Could somebody just,
It's actually the lift they use for fixing under the trucks to actually lift the truck.
to lift
Lift the truck.
truck
Correct.
up to fix the truck? Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next, we can come to the consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature passed by single vote. I would like to remove item 6, and that will come at a subsequent meeting. Are there any other items anybody would like removed from the consent agenda? No. Is there a motion to approve items 1 through 5 of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes unanimously. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, wow.
Fueling station. Oh, I'm around.